the issue of missing persons, particularly missing African American women, has been a long-standing concern. And there have been cases where individuals from marginalized groups just didn't get the same media coverage as other demographics. Efforts to address this disparity is ongoing, and they're still trying to make improvements in the communities. Today, we're going to explore the natal chart of someone who did receive that national coverage, but it was all a lie. Yes, guys, we are going to be doing the natal chart of Carlee Russell. Now, I know I kind of said, okay, true crime is my thing, and technically it's going to be a crime for this girl. But I was going to explore her chart by myself, and I thought, why don't I bring you guys with me? Something that I always try to do is get a chart of a person who does extraordinary things, for good or for bad. And, and she did something extraordinary. So I wanted to get to know who she was, and I thought I would share that with you. But before we get started, I have two things I want to tell you. One, if you like what you hear throughout the course of this video, make sure to like and subscribe for me, please, because I appreciate it and I need it for the algorithm since I'm restarting my channel. If you want a natal chart reading, also you can find me on fourthhouselb.com, where I have I provide natal chart readings as well as astrology tutoring for anyone who needs it. Secondly, if you like the look of my astrology software, I use Luna, and I love Luna. It's the most beautiful, aesthetically pleasing astrology software out there, and I just partnered with them. So if you are a viewer, obviously since you're a guest here, you get the benefit of 10% off of their monthly and annual plans. So just go down in the description box down below. You'll see a link and get your discount. Okay, now let's get into the chart. So I'm not going to go too in depth with what she did, but let me just give you a quick synopsis of who she is if you have not been paying attention to the news. But this lady, Carlee, was driving down the road. She was talking to a family friend or sister-in-law. She tells the person on the phone, hey, there's a baby on the side of the road. And I'm going to pull over and see what's going on. She pulls over, the person on the phone hears her, and they hear her say, are you okay? And then she hears Carlee screaming in the background. So naturally, the person on the phone is freaking out. She's missing. The lady, fast forward, Carlee is missing for 40 something hours, 2 days. And fast forward, she ends up coming back to her parents' house, just appearing back to her parents' house. Then she comes back and tells the authorities that she had been kidnapped. She kind of got away. She got kidnapped again by a guy with red hair. It was kind of weird. And main point, the story had a ton of holes. A lot of people from social media also were kind of, calling her bluff a little early, even though everyone was kind of, trying to reserve judgment for a little while, specifically because of two things. One, because she was a Black woman, and Black women tend to not get a lot of coverage. So it's, you don't want to assume the worst. So second of all, there was a potential kidnapper that's taking babies. I mean, come on, that would have been, or not taking babies, but using babies to lure women. That was a little much for people. So people cared a lot. And so unfortunately, they found out that she lied about everything. Side note or side story, I think I don't know if this is for sure, but her boyfriend cheated on her with a stripper, and that didn't really go well. So maybe it's to get his attention. I don't know. Let's look at the chart. But anyways, that's what the story is. Okay. This is not the chart. So Carlee Russell was born on July 22nd, 1997. I made her, we don't have a birth time for her. I made her birth time at sunrise though. So her rising was the same sign as her sun. something I'm playing with. We'll see how it goes. It won't have any impact. I'm not going to keep the houses holding these houses. So, but she was born in Hoover, Alabama. At least that's the assumption. She's lived in Alabama her whole life. So I'm going to go ahead and use Hoover because I think that's where the event happened. So yeah. So I'm going to start with her south node, and instead of starting her with her sun, I usually start with the sun, but I think the sun will get pulled into the story later. It plays a huge part. Her south node is in Pisces. Pisces is the sign of intuition, dreams, illusions, creativity, spiritual transcendence, as well as escapist tendencies, issues with boundaries, and addiction. Pisces can be tied to musicians and artists, creatives, spiritual workers, mystics, individuals that just delve in the mysterious and maybe creating worlds even, right? So the south node in Pisces individual has a past life that might have experienced loss of some sort. Let me back up though, because I do a lot of I study evolutionary astrology, so we do deal with a lot of past life karma. So for if you're new to my channel, I should probably kind of set that tone a little bit. So for those who don't know, the south node on her chart is going to be indicated over here, and it's going to indicate her karma, unresolved karma, as it pertains to her like her in her past life. And due to something, it could be something that she overdid in a past life, or she has yet to learn a lesson in her past life around those themes, the Piscean themes. But the goal of the South Node is to take the gifts and the lessons from the South Node, because that's the side that you know really well. You've done it before in a past life, and move towards your North Node to live a life of purpose. Now, again, if you don't like the concept of past lives, let's go ahead and just say maybe she came into life with this natural gifts or these natural tendencies, or there's ancestral trauma. So maybe it's something that was learned from other family members and it's passed down from generation to generation. But the main point is that she came into this life with this imprinting that is Piscean in nature. But in this case, since her south node is in Pisces, her north node is going to be in Virgo, which asks her to get grounded and realistic and to help others and take it to the streets, not just help others for self-serving reasons, but to really do the work and do things that are rooted in reality and manifest in a material way. So that's her nodal axis, okay? But we'll get into that a little bit more. So that's how we deal with that in evolutionary astrology. We play a lot with nodes, which would, affect this area right here. Hopefully you can see it, my cursor. But anyway, so knowing all that, so her south node in Pisces is, indicates a individual with a past life that experienced a loss of self due to various things. So it could have been because of loss of self due to addiction, loss of self to spiritual zealotism, disassociation because of traumatic experiences, loss that they've experienced themselves. Main point, a person like this could come into the world with a difficulty planting their feet on the ground, locking into reality. So dreams, stories, figments of their imagination, illusions of grandeur can be a thing. Okay. So they could naturally have a vivid imagination, again, living in a dream with ideal scenarios, in their minds. Nothing wrong with a vivid imagination, but if you compile this with other personality traits, then you can end up in a situation like she is. When you are a person that is, in your own head, because also Pisces is very just, again, they're somewhere else. So, when you're a person who is in your head and things are so, intense with the imagery and pictures and idealism, you know, you can become a little bit self-absorbed. Again, it depends on the intensity of the chart and everything around this placement. But this can be but we know that this is really a theme because it gets amplified by her Piscean moon. So her moon is in Pisces, and so her subjective reality is very much tied to her, her spiritual self, the things that she senses. And so that makes her highly intuitive, and her emotional, subjective nature is intimately tied to what she's sensing around her. So that can be a very intense feeling, particularly because Pluto is squaring her moon. And so again, she has unresolved karma when it comes to Piscean things. And then she's also going to have unresolved karma when it ties to things that are associated to her Neptune and Jupiter. So the rulers of Pisces is Jupiter and Neptune. So we're going to explore the conditions of both of those planets right now. So Jupiter is trining Mars in Libra. I'm so sorry. Jupiter is trining Mars in Libra, which gives this energy that whatever she believes, she's probably willing to fight for it, especially if it's in a situation or for a cause or for a relationship. And Mars is in detriment here. So the way she would confront and fight is in a more passive aggressive way, indirect way. Libra is not the direct type of conflict resolver, right? It's very diplomatic and it can see both sides. And so the way a person who is Libran and who argues would be very passive aggressive, and also would want to maintain good standing with the person that they're arguing with. So this is it falls in the pocket of why she called the girl that, or messaged or texted them. I think this is facts. I think she texted the stripper instead of holding her man to task. Now, I don't know if she did hold him to task, but at the end of the day, she still wanted to be with him, and possibly. Okay, I don't know if this is facts, but we're gonna say allegedly. Allegedly, we're gonna start using that word. Allegedly, she used this whole charade to get him back. So clearly, she wasn't holding him accountable; she was holding the stripper accountable. So this has karmic implications because, again, all this is tying into, her nodes, right? Because Jupiter is associated to this action, all this stuff that's going on. Mars is also in a loose conjunction with her Chiron, which indicates that the way she expresses anger and how she is motivated is from relational wounding. So it's like someone who, saw something, maybe had bad examples of relationships in her childhood, and then now she responds a certain way because she's seen certain things, she's learned certain lessons about, okay, maybe people will always leave you, or it doesn't, just whatever the messaging is that can be wounding about relationships. And the pain that is associated specifically to Libra, right? Because we're talking about Chiron in Libra, are Libran things, right? So the pain of feeling like you have to keep the peace all the time, even if you're mad as hell, you still feel like you have to suck it up and try to be this poised individual. And I think that obviously leaks out, if that's not really you and that doesn't feel authentic to you, that kind of can leak a little bit, Also the pain of having a strong pull towards relationships that have passed its expiration date because you're such a relationship person. It can be, you could stay in relationships a little longer than they need to be. And I think Libras care about appearances a lot. And so the appearance of her boyfriend that I don't know, it seemed like they were really, going steady or whatever you call it. I know that 1950s term, but going steady. And I think she might have had expectations, and, that can be embarrassing if she finds out that he chose the stripper over her. When she even texts the stripper, Carlee texts the stripper and says, "I'm better than you, I'm prettier than you, I'm more successful than you, you're just a stripper." Like, she has this belief. I feel like a cheating situation could hurt her sense of respectability and like the picture that she has in her mind of how things are supposed to go, because Libras do care about appearances quite a bit.
Hi guys, I wanted to take a quick moment to just state that we are not anti strippers or sex workers at all. I am not saying that there's anything wrong with that type of work. I'm just saying that for the common person, the average person, that can be upsetting to them. But we're pro do you boo over here.
And Saturn is lurking at the top, opposed her moon, both her moon and Chiron, adding another layer of restriction around this already complex situation. So also her Jupiter in Aquarius is opposing her Mercury. And Jupiter in Aquarius is very expansive, truth-seeking, socially conscious place for Jupiter, placement. And when it opposes this loud and dramatic and, I hate to say it, dare I say, self-focused Mercury in Leo, their interests are at odds, right? Mercury and Jupiter's interests are at odds. And Jupiter tends to expand anything that it makes contact with, and Mercury can lead to overstating things. Mercury in Leo wouldn't necessarily make someone a liar, but it could make someone make them over dramatize a situation or a story. And again, the Jupiter contact expands on that. Pulling the Mars into the mix, she would easily or could easily twist reality in the defense of something that she cares for and she's fighting for. Specifically a relationship, right? And I should add that her Venus is conjunct her Mercury. Mercury and Venus together can make someone a great speaker. I have Mercury and Venus sextiling each other. I gotta put a little effort into it, but like if I try, I present a lot, but I stutter over my words, obviously over here. But anyways, yeah, it can make someone a really good speaker, and a person who can be a captivating speaker and a compelling one. And with all things considered, it can make someone a very, all of the things I'm telling you right now can make this person a very compelling storyteller. The other ruler of her south node is Neptune. So Neptune creates a fog and puts rose-colored glasses on a situation. So whenever I see Neptune, and especially Neptune with hard aspects, I'm going to ask, what's missing here? What's not being all the way told? What's being distorted? What's being hidden? So put a pin in that. So let's get into, let's break that out a bit. So Neptune is conjunct Uranus. Uranus in Aquarius is the sign of disrupting the status quo. It is for the people. It's about the greater good of humanity. It's about being an individual. Uranus wants to, really express, specifically in Aquarius too. This person wants, Uranus and Aquarius energy does want to be it wants authenticity, no matter what. And even if they're weird, it feels weird. And Neptune being the planet of idealism, I can see this person having trouble regarding, having this desire to live this ideal life, and then if something goes off, or it could move into disillusionment really quickly. I also see if things don't go well, this person can be really cold. and detached in how they deal with things. And because Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury, so I would think that this person also would get really like calculated. And instead of being for the people, right? So Uranus is for the people. Neptune kind of changes things a little bit, and I feel like there's this air with Uranus and Neptune of like, you know, looking down on people. So, and again, I will get you to some great stuff. I swear I will get to her positive personality traits if you need it. But I'm trying to break out her nodal story. And so this person could kind of come off a little elitist. So what I would say, I know that her family has money, and she probably went to really good schools, and she was an AKA, which is a really elite black sorority in the nation. So she kind of is playing into a lot of this vision of what is high society, what is respectability, what is the things that you need, to be a perfect person or a good person or a person in good standing. And so this person can also mythologize traditional structures and romanticize it, but somehow not fit in. So I see someone who, again, giving into the capitalist dream, doing the things, going to school, getting the guy, and then it somehow just doesn't work. Maybe the guy she's dating is not a good fit, or something like that. And that's really hard on this person. And energy is not only this energy right here that I'm explaining is not only opposing her sun, which is her vitality, it's how she shines, it's how she feels great about herself, but it's also creating this cardinal cross. That energy, specifically with Neptune and Uranus, is it's creating kind of like this cardinal cross with the Sun, Chiron, and Vesta. Vesta and Aries, again, is a very, first of all, Vesta is a person's spiritual calling, an indicator of a person's spiritual calling. And so the spiritual calling in Aries is, I will fight for what I need and for what I care about, and fight for, if I have to fight to protect others, I'll do that too. But that's difficult to access since, Vesta is part of this cardinal cross, which includes the sun, which is her ego and her sense of self, and Neptune tends to blur the lines of sense of reality and self. So this is a very sad thing, because when you think about the full picture, right? And I'm getting to that full picture of like, what she could have done was use some of her wounding to help in her voice. People probably listen to her, and using her skills and her ability, or she has a compelling voice, right? Using that to help others and to defend others. So, again, that Chiron in Libra, maybe some advocacy work, maybe helping people who, domestic violence survivors, something that has to do with defending people who need help, and using some of her wounding to fuel that, right? So it's kind of, that's how like sometimes you see a person's chart in the positive, and then you hear sometimes the negative. It doesn't go that way. But I really do believe in like the potential of someone's chart. We always have free will, so it's always interesting to look at what she could have done. Her Cancer sun is ruled by the moon, and the moon is associated to our emotional nature and our subjective reality. And the moon is in another intuitive and emotionally sensitive sign of Pisces. And so I find that Pisces moons, again, I think I touched on this a little earlier, that they're very sensitive to all non-tangible and observable stimuli, if that makes sense. So they're going to catch up on vibes, they're going to catch up on energies. And so I think that's something to consider if someone is a person that likes to project themselves onto other people. They can really pull off a lot and then give them what they want. So something to think about. The sun being the ego and what a person aspires to be, and Neptune being the planet of illusions and dreams and creativity. A lot of her lack of clarity and realistic perspective on her identity is going to be having to be addressed by her working on her wounding and karma around who she is in relationship. And again, I'm like, there's such an opportunity, right? If you have wounding around relationships, you have this big voice, you know, why not transmute that into something more productive? So, but yeah, and so I can see this person getting lost in other people though. Boundaries can be a problem in with this type of placement with the sun, opposing Neptune. Um, I can see this, deception, vulnerability to deception, giving and receiving it. And Neptune, talk about rose colored glasses. A person like this could possibly have illusions about who they are, illusions about the people around them. They might glamorize themselves. Again, she told the stripper, "I'm rich and I'm beautiful." And it's not to say that she's not lying, but who needs to say that? I can also see someone like this kind of morphing into a different person, given different situations. So kind of project, again, giving people what they want based off of what they're sensing they need. I'm also not going to play with her. Again, she could have just easily, this Neptune sun could easily mean that she's just really intuitive and she's really spiritual and all that stuff, but we know where we're at right now. So it's not going to be the best interpretation, or a positive interpretation. I also am going to say this one time and then I'm going to get off of it. There's something up with the father. And you guys can put in the comment down below if you know what I'm talking about, but you are not going to tell me with the sun and Saturn squaring each other. I don't know if it's an enabling relationship. I don't know if he did the daddy's little princess thing, and so it kind of fueled her entitlement. Mars, the ruler of Aries, in Libra, the sign of relationships, how she sees relationships, maybe how she is in relationships, maybe it could affect what she expects in relationships. But either way, all that is highly influenced by her father. But he's a very strong force on her chart. I'm struggling to think that it's a necessarily positive force. So I don't know if so I don't know. The sun is also quincunxing the moon. The sun represents the father as well, and the moon represents the mother as well. It represents our ego as well, how we shine in this world, and the moon represents our subjective reality. So, quincunxes are we're at specifically this quincunx, it's weird because it's a degree based quincunx, but the signs are in the same element of water. So think about it this way. We're at a party. I'm the sun, you're the moon, we're quincunxing each other, and we have the same background, we speak the same language, we have the same political ideology, we have, we're in the same life stage, but there's still this subconscious dissonance. Everything checks out, but there's still something off between us. We sense it. We can't quite feel in the pocket. We might never call each other again, even though everything on paper would make sense for us to talk to each other again, right? And so that is what I see. So there's a little tiny voice in the back of your head when you have these conversations, or between those signs, or between those two people or two energies at the party, that just makes things awkward. And Carlee is, and then so when you're looking at the parents, right? So the parents could have had the ideal marriage, to the public. It looks all good. But then that quincunxy energy of things are below the surface a little bit, something's off. And Carlee is a Pisces moon. Pisces moons have to work at cutting people off energetically. They have to work at that. So if Carlee is a Pisces moon, you're going to tell me that she's not picking up on the weird stuff between her father and her mother, and that possibly affecting her her sense of what is a relationship? I don't know. It could also be the dissonance between, again, her emotional state and who she is outside in the world. It could mean that, she has everything going on, and it seems that like everything's kind of lining up and she's living in her purpose and everything, but everything kind of just doesn't feel right. Either way, there's psychological dissonance that comes from that. And something to think about. So I also feel like when you have the sun and the moon, there is some, when you have quincunx, you also get this element of compartmentalization, where it's like, I have this emotional state over here, I do this over here, I do that over there. And so there's no bringing it together, but I think it's a little bit more harmonious for her because they're both in that same element. So I wouldn't necessarily do that. But I will say this for the parents, if we're still going along with the parents, the compartmentalizing of the problems in their relationship or whatever, they could be living in the same house, maybe different rooms. There's something off with that. And I say this not to be rude, but I just think that all this has an impact on her trauma. People who do things like she did has trauma that she possibly witnessed or experienced. You just don't come out the gate. I mean, some people do, but even like the craziest murderers had some really rough childhoods. And so it kind of fuels that. Maybe someone's born with a certain potential, but then there's always this element of like, what keeps it going, what keeps the trauma going, what keeps the wounding going. So yeah, we're gonna finish out with Pluto. So Venus representing love and relationships and her self-worth, as well as like actual money, beauty, aesthetics. And then you have the moon, it's like how you feel safe and what you need, what are your deep needs and emotional needs specifically. It's how you regenerate, how you feel safe. You're not going to sleep somewhere that's not, the moon comes out at night, we go to sleep at night, we don't sleep in places that we're not safe, right? So it's really, again, safety and emotional stability. So when they're opposing each other, there's particular emotional needs. There's what she needs emotionally, and then there's what it is that she's getting and attracting, whether in relationships or, her sense of self-worth or whatever. And they're not the same, though. They're two different things. And a person can struggle with self-worth because you don't feel safe, and you add in Pluto to that T-square, and it just creates this element of intensity and psychological chaos and issues. And so it can create fear and obsession over relationships, and it can activate crises. But Pluto is, I don't want I don't know if you guys know, because I don't know who's watching these videos yet. But Pluto is not a planet of transfer. It's not. Pluto is a planet of transformation, but it's not a planet to be feared or anything. It's just, it's asking you to to kill the old you and to create a new you that's better. Release the things that don't serve you anymore. Very similar to the South Node. And to relinquish control over certain areas of your life. So, I think with it being at the apex of the T-square, I believe it's part of the story of her getting out of and rising above and transforming out of the situation. I'm not like that she's not 100% loved, or that she doesn't feel completely satisfied, or that she's not getting her emotional needs satisfied. I think that Pluto, when not aware of this, this potential, to fix this, again, it creates chaos and crises and jealousies and struggles with control. And again, a potential for growth and, working on things, but it just seems like she didn't take the opportunity. So where Pluto is, I'm gonna always ask, especially if it's hard, anything's hard, creating hard aspects to it. I'm going to ask, what is going on with control? What's the relationship? What's this person's relationship with control? Who is controlling them? Are they controlling? I'm going to ask about that control and power dynamics, specifically within relationships. And I also want to know, how do they navigate in those intense relationships? Do they kind of cower? Do they fight back? Do they do passive aggressive things? How do they deal with that? So I think there's a lot of internal turmoil when it comes to this placement. It's very under the surface. It manifests probably with bad behavior. If someone is not, if someone with this chart is not getting what they want, they can easily, lash out. But the way they lash out, specifically in her chart, would be, on a more subliminal or indirect way. So I think there's a lot of inner turmoil with this type of chart. When it's very under the surface, and so it manifests probably in bad behavior, like a ventilation of anger, because again, she's not directly addressing the source of the anger. So it tends to lash out in these indirect ways, and so I think the baking of her abduction is the most redirect, like indirect way of addressing an issue with an ex or a person that you're dating or someone that you're trying to engage with romantically. Let's think about it. Like, you could either talk to him and ask him, hey, let's go to dinner, or you can just disappear yourself. And so I just feel like that's just different. And I think all of this comes from her self-esteem getting, stepped on, and I think for someone who has a sun opposing her Neptune, and Chiron in Libra, with the wounding of wanting to keep appearances going and having this picture in her mind of what she should have and who she is, this idealistic picture of who she is, her actually feeling that pain of and wounding of self-esteem being hurt can be one of the worst things you can do to someone like that. Let's go ahead and get into, I'm going to look at her transit for the day that she disappeared. I want to know what day did Carlee go missing. Okay, so she went missing on the 13th. But I think she started Googling things. Whoops, should go back. Okay, I think she started Googling things. I think she started Googling things on the 11th of July, but let's go ahead. Let's say, let's go all the way here. I just want to see what happens if I go here. Let's see how much happens. This much changes. A ton of 0 degrees. So her sun is on 29 degrees of Cancer, and it's considered 29 degrees is a critical degree called, it's also known as an anaretic degree, which is kind of like a degree of like, let's get this going. It's the last chance. There's transition energy and a lot of urgency when it comes to it. That's already in her chart. Okay. So that energy of just eager, urgent energy. And so on the day, and I put the 11th because the text messages actually were on the 11th, or not text messages, her Google. So she started Googling, and this is a fun fact. She started Googling, how much would they charge? Do they fine you for, what is it called? Amber alerts? Googling, the plot or basically movie Taken, which is a abduction film, stuff that you just wouldn't text or Google before you get abducted. You just get abducted. You don't Google those things. So it was very suspect. But yeah, so I believe the text messages started on the 11th. I could have Googled that, but I remember listening to a press conference and they said something about on the 11th because she went missing on the 13th. So yeah, so there's a little bit of urgency in her chart already. It's unstable, like very unstable energy. Then you have Pluto's transiting her sun, and it's at 29 degrees. So right here, Pluto is transiting her sun. So here you see that there's a cardinal cross that's already kind of existing there, but kind of gets exacerbated here with Pluto being at the 29 degrees and the node squaring almost. I mean, this is almost to the degrees. So we're talking karmic stuff. We're talking about, South Node transiting Chiron, can be, or in orb with Chiron, can bring up obviously wounds, old wounds that make a person go back to old patterning. And that old patterning, as far as, how I analyze it, is not good patterning. It's usually the low vibration trauma response, pretty much. And that's in Scorpio. So, and then Pluto's also the ruler of Scorpio is Pluto, or one of them. And that's transiting, that's again creating a cardinal cross and opposing her sun. So even just looking at the axis of like her sun being opposed Pluto basically busting up her dream world and her ideal picture of what's going on with Neptune, conjunct Neptune, and then again just pointing straight at her sun, so draining her vitality and her sense of power and identity. You also have, oh wow, I didn't even notice this, but the Mars is transiting Venus. Venus also being about relationships, and so you basically have Mars, which is like fighting and arguing, and it's also conjunct Venus as well. So you have that infighting energy. I've had arguments with people with Mars transits to where I've stopped talking to them, so that can indicate a breakup. Then you have South Node. It's conjunct her Chiron in Libra, so again, it's like releasing energy. But again, it's outside out of the sign, but still. And then you have Neptune. I'm sorry, not Neptune. You have Mercury that's also opposing Neptune and opposing Pluto at the same time. And so it's like, what type of news was being revealed? What type of news, like truth bombs, were being shared with her in around this time to put her in this place that she felt vulnerable enough to do a crime like this? So let's go forward 2 days, or back forward 2 days. Yeah, forward 2 days. And now you have, and I've used 2 nodes because, sometimes I need to know if it's going to make a difference or something like that. But yeah, we have now the nodes now at 29 degrees. Again, it's like, come on, I have to figure out what I'm going to do. Like, I need to figure out what I'm going to do. And again, the wounding being activated, her self-confidence being activated. I mean, honestly, it's just being obliterated right now. And really having, and then she's about to have her solar return, so she's probably questioning, okay, who am I? What am I supposed to be doing? And if she broke up with her boyfriend, she's probably like, what is this? What am I supposed to do? But anyways, that's kind of what I got for her chart today. I think it's really interesting. I think that the transit around the day that she disappeared was interesting. Almost as if, she got this news or she broke up with her boyfriend. It was very disorienting. I'm speaking, it's not a really, effective word to describe a breakup, but I think it activated some of her wounding and thus some of her karmic, like some of her old patterning that can be not as is pretty toxic, like affecting some of her more toxic traits. And yeah. So if you liked what you heard, please, again, I'd love for you to comment down below what you think, and also like, subscribe. If you have any suggestions on another chart reading, let me know. And I guess until next time, bye.